What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Walkout Podcast.
where we talk about fights, news, and more. And today we're going to be covering the UFC Freedom 250 main card that took place last Sunday. And obviously, this was at the White House, a much anticipated event that, you know, it did actually deliver with a lot of knockouts here. Every fight ended in a knockout, which is pretty insane. And hasn't I don't think that has that ever happened before
No,
on a
first time.
UFC main
It was
card?
the first
Yeah,
time ever. Yeah.
first time ever. That's insane. So yeah, there were a lot of talking points after this main event and most after this main card and after this card because there was no prelims actually, so we should just call it the fight card. But after the main events, there was a lot of talking points, the main and the co-main, because both of them were sort of the main event was an upset and the co-main was a bit of a controversial had a bit of a controversial ending. But
Yeah.
we'll begin with the main event here with Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje in the lightweight title bout, with which ended with Justin Gaethje getting as he was the interim champion, and he I don't know if you say he didn't really, he took his belt basically from Ilia. Ilia failed in retaking his belt here. Could you talk us through this fight maybe a little bit before we move on?
Yeah, I guess I'll have to. I'm not gonna beat around the bush with the fact I'm a massive Ilia Topuria fan. I think most MMA fans are fans of this guy because he's so spectacular. And I mean, I could not see this coming, as you know by my preview. Our picks were like spot on
Yeah.
for almost the rest of the card here, but this one was such a big upset. And I said to you in the preview, I said Sean Strickland was similar odds when he met Hamza Chimaev, um, than the same odds that Justin Gaethje was going into this fight against Topuria. Is it like, could we see another upset? And you and I were both on the same page with the fact that no,
Yeah.
this won't be that again. But it was, and in even worse fashion. What happened in round 4 was that Justin Gaethje completely broke Ilia Topuria so badly that he couldn't get up off his stool in the corner, and yeah,
His brother
basically,
threw the towel, I think. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
his
he waved
brother
off the free.
stopped the fight. And I
Yeah.
mean, you've probably seen it by now, everyone. The posts on X and stuff with Ilia Topuria's face before and after the fight, it was brutal. So, in terms of the fight itself, there's not too much to be said other than massive credit to Justin Gaethje. He's what a fighter he is. I mean, not one of my favorites, and I have struggled to give him respect because I know he's an amazing grappler and wrestler, and he never uses it. He likes, and I respect that because he says that he wants to put on entertaining fights, and that's what he always does. So fair play in that case, and it is a bit of a fairy tale ending with the fact he's at the end of his career, and finally he's the undisputed lightweight champion of the world on the biggest stage in front of Donald Trump at the White House. An American champion
And
wins the main
winning it
event.
again. And winning it against one of the top, fighters of all time, probably already
Yeah,
in Ilia Topuria.
exactly that. So huge credit to Justin Gaethje in terms of the fight itself and and like the performance. I mean, there's not too much to be said. I think everyone's seen it by now. Justin Gaethje just did what Justin Gaethje does very well. In my opinion, not too complicated a strategy. Ilya should have known that Justin would just come forward with like stomping kicks, good combinations, and of course, it's like harder to easier said than done is what I'm trying to say to defend
Yeah.
that, even if you know that's what's happening. And people like Khabib has said before when he fought Gaethje, he hits like a truck. So obviously it's tough. But I thought Ilya could deal with it better, and I was just surprised at how this fight played out. Do you agree, or do you have any other like takeaways? Maybe just before I pass it over, could you also touch on the fact that moment where where Ilya went for a takedown instead of striking when he actually had Justin Gaethje a bit hurt there, because that stood out to me at least as a major moment of this fight.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest, the most important moment of this fight. Of course, maybe we could talk about, Justin Gaethje finding his jab through Ilia Topuria's guard in the first round and basically, giving him a major injury that would, play a part later on in the fight. But it was that second round that really determined, at least for me, this fight and how it played out. And Justin Gaethje's coach himself, Trevor Whitman, he sort of shared this sentiment that Ilia Topuria made a massive mistake when he dropped Justin Gaethje, with the body shots, but he didn't follow it up with a finish or try to finish him. Instead, he went down for the takedown and didn't even really go that much for a submission finish. Instead, he was sort of just spinning around and taking his breath, sort of. So that's for me, that's probably the well, what could you call it? The turning point of this fight, because during the second round, Ilia Topuria fought a really good second round, even through his, already bleeding eyes. And Justin Gaethje, but he did hang on. I thought, of course, Justin Gaethje, he showed, we have to give him props as well. It's not just that Ilia Topuria lost this fight. It's also true that Justin Gaethje won this fight based on how he then fought round 3 and round 4. Where I thought, Justin Gaethje, obviously, he put up a really good performance on the feet and tagged Ilia Topuria over and over again. And as you said, when you talked first about how it ended, he broke Ilia Topuria's face basically he broke his ribs, I'm pretty sure as well, by the end of the 4th round, and they had to call it. So, yeah, for me, that second round, there's a before and there's an after the second round. The first round was pretty competitive. The injury probably happened already by then, but it wasn't too severe. So in the second round, that's the most important round for me here. And I am surprised because I didn't see it going like this at all. I'm pretty sure, when we talked about the fight beforehand, I was 100% sure. I said that he's going to knock him out in the first round, and I didn't even have like I said something like, I'm pretty sure I compared Justin Gaethje to Max Holloway, and I said that Max Holloway has a better chin than Justin Gaethje, and much longer reach, and etc., better hand speed, stuff like that. And I said that probably this would mean that Ilia Topuria can, he would probably find Justin Gaethje's chin in the first round and knock him out, but that didn't happen, not at all. So props to Justin Gaethje for putting up a good fight. And if anything, we can talk about Ilia Topuria. I guess he didn't really show enough movement, did he? Maybe.
No, I mean, I saw something on X that I thought was spot on. Someone tweeted a simple tweet of a clip from this fight, and the fight of like Ilia Topuria back in the day, and like a couple of years ago, and it was like, okay, who is this guy and what has he done with Ilia Topuria? Because all through that fight, it looked nothing like the Ilia Topuria I'm a fan of, because I've gone on and on about it, and why I've picked him every single time is because of the fact that Ilia Topuria's foot movement, head movement, shot selection, everything that it has to do with his boxing. And I know boxing isn't MMA, it's a part of MMA, your boxing. You can combine it with other stuff. But if we're going to be honest, this fight was like almost just like a kickboxing fight, at least. And nothing looked like the Ilia Topuria I know. Even in like the first round, he looked all right, Ilia, but it's not the Ilia Topuria that put Max Holloway in danger. They put Volkanovski down. They put Oliveira down. So props to Justin Gaethje, but I think the reason why a lot of people, if Ilia had looked as good as he does, and Justin just pulled out a Hail Mary like head kick and knocked him out, I think we'd be giving him even more props. But Justin Gaethje did what we expected him to do, but Ilia Topuria just didn't move out of the way of those shots. And like I said, I don't want to be negative towards Justin Gaethje, because beating Ilia Topuria at this age is really impressive. So just get that clear. However, Ilia Topuria's foot movement, if he had moved like he did against, say, Holloway, he would never have taken that much damage in this fight. So I don't know why that is. Is it the weight? Maybe, but that seems to be the other way around, because we've seen the clips of him cutting down to featherweight and how it looked like he was barely being able to stand after weighing in. So lightweight seems to be the better weight, but he just looked off. I can't put it any better than that. So other than that, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but in terms of the fight. But I think if we're gonna move on to who's next for both of these guys, I think that's the most interesting thing, maybe of all. And for me,
Yeah.
I was not going to do this, but I have to go on a quick rant. People act like Ilia Topuria is washed now. Like, oh, that's a loss. He's done. He's over. I mean, it's still Ilia Topuria. We've seen George St. Pierre lose fights. We've seen John Jones, even though not on his record, but he has lost fight against like Dominic Reyes and stuff. Um, Anderson Silva has lost fights. Volkanovski has lost fights. I mean, every single great fighter has lost fight. So it's not like one loss defines you, it's how you come back. And I think to count Ilia Topuria out after his streak that he's been on and the class is shown at, because he had one bad night, I think that's mental. So, but everyone who's well educated in MMA, of course, doesn't do that. So maybe I'm just getting wound up by social media here. But the interesting thing is, what's next for these guys? I guess we should go. Oh, we should start with the champion, right? Who do you want to see Justin Gaethje fight next?
Yeah, I mean, first I just want to touch on what you said, and I completely agree. Even if it's just social media guys that don't know much about MMA or the UFC in general, it's still, it's still sort of, it's so annoying because those people, they're still the people that hype up, a lot of them hype up fights and stuff. So it's annoying because the UFC still looks at those, engagements on social media and they sort of see, okay, now maybe this guy isn't as big anymore or doesn't have enough, stardom anymore, and I think that hurts a lot of fighters. So yeah, no, it's annoying, but absolutely, Ilia Topuria will come back, and he will show, I think, that he still has a top level, and he is still the same fighter, probably than before. We hope at least. But moving on to what you asked for. Justin Gaethje, his next fight, the champion, the lightweight champion here, no longer an interim champ, just the lightweight champion, Justin Gaethje. I didn't think that we would be seeing this, a week ago or a year ago, but here we are.
Here we are, yeah.
Yeah, here we are. So, in terms of Justin Gaethje, I think that, we have to look at the guys in the division here. Who are the guys who actually want a title shot? Because I'm pretty sure Justin didn't call anyone out, right?
No, he didn't, as far as I'm aware of. So yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that we gotta look at the people here who are in the top, 5 of the lightweight rankings, and we have a possibility of fighting for the title in the future. And we have to look at someone here, Arman Tsarukyan. And for me, Arman Tsarukyan is someone who should be in the line for the title here. The only problem here, though, is that Arman fought pretty, not recently. I was about to say recently. I meant he fought a long time ago. He fought in November.
Yeah.
So he needs to fight again, and pretty soon, I would think so. And Justin Gaethje, he's gonna be out for some time. Just sitting on that belt. And I think that what you do in the meantime might be Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
The rematch.
That's the one.
Yeah, for the number one, for the title shot, you have to say. And then when that's done, the winner of that fight has to take on Justin Gaethje, let's say in, I don't know, around Christmas, maybe, probably around the fights during Christmas. So I would guess around January, maybe December, early December.
Yeah. Depending on how much damage they take as well, the winner there.
Yeah, that's true. If Arman leaves the fight and looks, completely, but I would suspect that Arman versus Oliveira would be more of a grappling sort of, or I'm pretty sure that the first fight, it was pretty mixed, but there was a lot of grappling, so hopefully it doesn't end up with either of them being out for a long time, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but I mean, by this point, I can't even take my own predictions seriously. But like you said, they are two grapplers. Yeah, so we don't know, but I would expect it to be more of a technical grappling match. In that case, no one should take that much damage, even if they get like submitted or something. But I totally agree with you. That's the fight to make. It makes sense because it's the number 2 guy against the number 3 guy. But does Arman deserve a title shot when he hasn't fought for like is it 9 months now? And like you said, he fought in November, and that win was against Dan Hooker, who is pretty washed nowadays. So I mean, that's not even that good of a win. And Charles Oliveira is picking up some speed again, but he recently fought for a title last summer and got flatlined. So, I mean, one decision win over Holloway, is that enough for a title shot? I don't believe so. So, like you said, 100% Oliveira versus Arman for the number one contender spot. Book it now. They both want to fight. Book it for like September or something. Have the winner fight Justin Gaethje in maybe the start of next year. And otherwise, if Ilia hadn't taken so much damage, I think personally that he totally deserves an instant rematch. And I think that should stay, the fact that he deserves a title shot when he comes back. So hopefully, a bit like, with Volk, when he like lost to Topuria and then sat out for ages. But when he eventually came back against Lopes, he did get the title shot immediately for the interim. So
Yeah.
I think it should be the same with Ilia. And that's the thing. I would want to ask you who you want to see Ilia in there with next, but I guess we're on the same page here, right? That surely Ilia should be out for at least 6 months, and probably like somewhat like 8, 9, 10 months, somewhere like the first or second
Absolutely.
quarter of
Yeah.
next year, surely? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so as well, and I think that even if he, even if he's because it's a very serious injury he has, both probably broken ribs and the most importantly the orbital bone fracture that
Yeah.
he sustained, I think under both eyes, and that's a very serious injury. So it's gonna take a long time, and even if he recovers from that, let's say in 8 months or something, I don't think that Ilya is gonna be rushing back and saying to the UFC, "Hey guys, I want to fight Benoit Saint-Denis, for the fourth ranking spot or something." I think he's gonna
No,
say to
no.
the UFC, "Guys, I'm back. I'm ready to fight for the title. If I need to wait 2 months or so to fight for the title, I'm doing that." So I don't think we're gonna see Ilya again until the next summer, and I think he has enough, leverage with the UFC, and I think the UFC has enough. They see him as a big enough star still that they want to see him fight for the title. They don't want to put him up versus someone like Saint-Denis or even though someone with like Ruffy would be interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not really sure. There's gonna be a lot of stuff happening in the meantime, so that could happen. But no, I do think that they put him back for the title as
Yeah.
soon as he can.
Like possibly next spring or summer. And it's almost like impossible to like speculate who the champion will be, because it could be Gaethje, it could be Topuria, it could be Pimblet, I meant. It could be
Yeah.
Arman, it could be Oliveira. Someone of those, it would probably, it could even be Huffy or Santini. So it's impossible if he's out. And I've seen some other people say that, oh, if he makes the return this like November, I'm like, did you watch the fight? Did you see his face? Do you know anything about
Yeah.
the injuries? He's not coming back this year.
And just the mental aspect too.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah, yeah.
losing, having your first loss. He went he was 17-0, and now he's like 17-1, and that's a big difference, I believe, especially in someone like Ilia Topuria who thinks of himself. He's so, you have to see it. He's very self confident, but he's also pretty arrogant. So
Yeah, yeah.
I do think that this mentality, this loss is gonna is gonna eat at him. And for some fighters like Volkanovski, they want to go back immediately. But I think Ilya, he's gonna have his camp. He's gonna have his brother. I think that his family are gonna push back on him and say you need to take time off. And
Yeah.
he has been out for a long time before. He's never really, he's never really been that active. So
Yeah,
I
even
do
when
see
he
him being
he
out.
wins fight in
Yeah,
like the first round, he's still not active. So I think it's gonna
yeah,
take almost a year off. So, but yeah, are we ready to move on? Obviously, that took a little bit, but it's the main event of the White House. It's gonna be a longer one today as well, guys. I hope just get stuck in. We can't rush through this fight because there is so much to talk about. But are we ready to move on to the co-main? I suppose.
yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah, and that was of course the most even fight on the card beforehand. Alex Pereira taking on Ciryl Gane with the chance to be 3 times champion in the UFC for the first time ever. But as you all know by now, that didn't come through, and Ciryl Gane put him out in the second round. And the biggest thing about this fight is not that Ciryl Gane won, as far as I'm aware. It's the back of the headshots that came afterwards. And Alex Pereira, as we know, has been on a tirade on Instagram and Twitter, tweeting compilations of Herb Dean allowing these kind of things, and compilation of Ciryl Gane doing this kind of stuff in other fights. And I think it's confirmed now that it's put in an appeal for this fight, and he's called for a rematch because this one shouldn't count. So he's very much on the side, of course, as you would expect, that this was not shouldn't have been allowed, is what I'm trying to say. But Ciryl Gane did get the win in the octagon and has the interim belt and called out Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall, as we've all seen, accepted straight away. But that's maybe another topic. But first of all, what did you make of the quite short bit of the fight that we did get to see in the first round and the second one?
Yeah, it's only one first round and then the second round, so it's 1.5 rounds basically that we got to see. And I don't really know. There's not that much to say. You can't draw that many conclusions. What I can say is that I do think that Alex Pereira, he's never been super light maybe on his feet. It's always been, more of the positioning, the footwork, the gradual footwork, not really the super. He's not, jumping all over the octagon and stuff like Gane was doing. And I don't know, I thought he looked pretty stationary, sort of already, in the first round, and then in the second round it could have been that he was cautious. He was feeding out his opponent, feeding out Ciryl Gane's movements, but it's hard to say. I thought the first round was, wasn't that big of a problem. Alex Pereira, sometimes he doesn't start super heavily. You remember the Khalil Roundtree fight when everyone thought he looked pretty good in the first rounds against Alex Pereira, and then we saw what happened later on in the fourth round of that fight. Yeah. And maybe that could have happened, but it didn't happen in this fight. And I thought that in the second round, Ciryl Gane he's basically, I don't want to say that he bulldozed over Alex Pereira, but he didn't give Alex Pereira any time to breathe, at least. And Alex Pereira, he couldn't really cope with the pressure. And then there's the problem of the way of the finisher, like you touched upon. Was it illegal strikes or not? Was it elbows to the back of the head? It was certainly to the back of the head, but we have seen some controversy in terms of, the referee Herb Dean coming out and sort of saying that the back of the head strikes that people have been pointing to in this fight are
legal.
Really, they aren't illegal. They are back of the head strikes, but they aren't illegal because it's not really the back of the head type of strike that is illegal, which is basically back of the neck or just the lower neck, area. Yeah. So it's a very small area. So I don't know. There's not, you don't really want to put too much analysis into it because the finish was really ugly, and there's going to be a lot of controversy around that for a long time, I think. But I have to say that I didn't think that Alex Pereira looked that good. That said, beforehand, we have seen Alex Pereira look a bit slower. For example, the first Ankalaev fight, and he lost that fight, and then he came back and he looked, stronger than ever. So I could absolutely. I don't think this means the end for Alex Pereira or anything, but I do think that he did not look at his best from the little of the fight we saw. Do you think that's sort of
a fair
assessment?
I think that's fair in this one. Not to cover old ground, but in the Aspinall fight, I think people took it the wrong way because Aspinall was actually looking really good. But you're totally spot on, in my opinion, here that Alex Pereira did not move as well as I thought he would. And maybe it was like, I thought honestly when he went up to heavyweight now, I thought it was going to be like, the power, he's going to have even more power. And maybe he did. But what he certainly had was a loss of movement, a loss of speed. And against a guy like Ciryl Gane, that you can't have that. So, like you said, probably lost the first round, didn't look good, but never count out, Alex Pereira. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a difficult one. Alex Pereira could have won if it continued, but Ciryl Gane looked the better fighter, has to be said. But I'm just sick and tired of this guy cheating his way through every single fight. I mean, some people are saying, like, it's not every fight. No, but it's like more than 50% of his fights. It's some kind of foul, like an eye poke, back of the head, something like groin shots, something like that. And I mean, he's the most dirty fighter in the entire UFC, in my opinion, in terms of how many fights you've seen with him where he cheats. And it's quite obvious cheating. So for me, the outrage on social media is warranted. But the thing here, the back of the head strikes, for me, they are. It was like 6, 7, or 8 back of the head shots I counted when I watched it back. But if you go by what Herb Dean said is the back of the headshot, then there was like 1. But for me, if those were legal shots, why wouldn't every single MMA fighters be throwing them like elbows there because they're highly effective? But the reason they are is because they're illegal because you take so much damage. But according to Abdeen, they're totally fine, which I can't see being correct because then every other MMA fighter would be doing the same thing. And we've literally seen fights where they remove points because of people throwing those kind of strikes. But for Ciryl Gane, it was fine and he got the win. So for me, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth after this fight, and I
Yeah.
can't really see this as a win. And I think that's really sad for Ciryl as well, because I'm not his biggest fan. But if he hadn't done that, he probably could have won the fight. Like you said, it was the way it was going. He could have knocked out Alex Pereira because he caught him with the jab. So if he just finished him regularly, he would have beaten Alex Pereira, one of the best guys in the UFC ever, even though it's at heavyweight, and everyone would be have no option but to be a fan of him because that's an amazing accomplishment. But when you cheat to win, it's like it's not really worth anything. And I think there's not a lot more to say about the fight itself since it was so short, and that was like the only thing. So in terms of what's next for these guys, Alex Pereira, like I said, he's been calling for an instant rematch and everything like that. But then I think it was with Ariel Helvani, an interview recently, he said like, I don't care who I fight next, so it's a bit contradictory. But in terms of the champ, Ciryl Gane, or the interim champ, should I say, Tom Aspinall accepted the call out, but he looked. It was everyone has seen how his eye is still not completely recovered, but he's back in training. Is it realistic that we see Ciryl Gane in there with Aspinall in maybe September, as they suggested? And I'm guessing you think that Ciryl Gane versus Aspinall is the fight you have to make, right?
Yeah, I think that, Gane versus Aspinall, that is the fight to make because, simply because Ciryl Gane, he is the interim champ and Tom Aspinall is the real heavyweight champ, and you have to combine the belts as soon as possible. That's what I think, at least. It gets pretty ugly when you have an interim champ and a real champ who's not fighting each other, like John Jones before the last couple of years before he went into retirement, and that was really annoying for everyone in the heavyweight division to have to deal with. So for me, I think you make that fight in September, and then you're probably looking at matching up maybe Josh Hokit versus Volkov, or maybe Pereira versus Pavlovich. Do you think that's a decent fight to make in the meantime? We don't really know how long Pereira will be out, but is it safe to say that he'll be out for maybe at least 8 months as well, like Ilia?
I would guess so, but it
Yeah.
worries me slightly that he's like Ilia. We haven't heard like a word from Ilia basically, but uh, Pereira's coming out directly after the fight in a few days that's been now, and constantly like begging for new fights, begging for like justice in this fight, and that doesn't scream someone who wants to be out for like 8 months for me. And as we know,
That's true.
he's usually very active, but at least he said he wants to stay at heavyweight. And I think the fight you mentioned is actually the best one for me. Sergey Pavlovich, he's a monster at heavyweight. He's a very good heavyweight, but he's not Tom Aspinall. So that will be a good thing to see. If Pereira fights him, I would pick Pereira. But if he beats Pavlovich, that's a real sign that okay, I belong at the top of the top in heavyweight, like top 3 possibly. But if he loses that, maybe it's a wrap for heavyweight. Maybe he should drop down back down to light heavy. So I agree with you. Pereira, Gane versus Aspinall, and Pereira should be fighting Pavlovich. Maybe Volkov. Those guys are a bit in the same camp,
Yeah.
as of ranking. But I think Volkov has done a bit more to deserve to be in the title shot conversation. But for Pereira and Pavlovich, they're like maybe 2 fights away from deserving a title shot, and that can change because Pereira is such a star that he might be able to jump the queue. But yeah, I think that's a good one to make actually. Yeah, I agree with you. Pavlovich versus Pereira, that would be, and just that fight itself would be amazing to watch. 2 heavy hitters, so that would be really really exciting.
And it's a great test. Like you said, Pavlovich is a true heavyweight. So it's a good test for Pereira to remain in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. All right, should we move on to our next one?
Yeah, let's
Da-
move on.
Down the card, featured fight, Sean O'Malley, as we predict. Now we're getting into the predictions that we actually got right, finally. Sean O'Malley won by knockout against Zahabi, who I was a bit nervous when I saw George St. Pierre walk into the ring or the octagon with Damien Zahabi in his corner. I was like, oh, have we missed something here? But we didn't. Sean O'Malley, quite an easy win, right, from him here.
Yeah, it looked pretty comfortable, in the striking and in terms of there wasn't really even any. I'm pretty sure there wasn't even any grappling at all. Not even a takedown attempt from Zahabi. So I don't really know if the game plan was to actually stand and strike with O'Malley. But if that was the game plan, then it was a really bad one because I think as the fight went on, especially in the second round, when O'Malley got the knockout, the knockdown, and then put him out of there, he I think it was pretty clear that there was a big difference in the striking, in the shot selection, just the accuracy. It's still the same Sean O'Malley that once was a champion at bantamweight. So we should never forget his quality in the striking. Don't disrespect Sean O'Malley. I'm just saying, even if maybe Zahabi isn't the best level of opposition, we can talk about that also, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, he was still ranked at 6th, so I think that's like it was like a good, not a good test in that sense, but I think we were spot on in our prediction when we said that it's statement time. We need something. We need something more than we saw against Song Yadong. I mean, something definite, if you can say so, and that's what we got, I thought. So Sean O'Malley is right up there again in the bantamweight division, actually passed Umar Nurmagomedov in the rankings. I think, at least. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
What do you think should be is that the fight to make? Because I mean, Petr Yan accepted Sean O'Malley's call for a rematch, but I think we both agree that Merab deserves the rematch with Petr Yan. So while that goes on, is Umar versus Sean O'Malley, is that the one, or do you have any other matchup for him?
I mean, I have always wanted to see that fight, and I'm pretty sure we made a video, at the start of the year, or at least in spring, when we talked about the fights that we want to see this year in the UFC.
Yeah.
Or in the near future. And I'm pretty sure this was one of those, and I really want to see this fight because for me, this is sort of the future of the bantamweight division. Probably because we're talking about the other guys in the division, Petr Yan and Merab. They are both pretty old at this point. Sean O'Malley and Umar are both not that old yet. They're both pretty young. And if you look at the the division, otherwise maybe Rod Roses Jr. is an up and coming pretty good guy, but otherwise the other guys, Song Yadong, Corey, Bautista, is the same old guys that's been there in a long time now, pretty at least 4 years or something in the same positions. So I'm not too bothered about those guys, but for me, Sean O'Malley versus Umar, that's it's a big test for both of these guys. Sean O'Malley, can he actually handle a top level grappler? I think it was pretty interesting that Eamon didn't go at all, that Zahabi didn't go at all for for the grappling versus Sean, and I don't know if he saw something in training beforehand, or he's been told by his coach that Sean O'Malley has improved his takedown defense so much that there's no point in going for the takedowns. I don't think that was the case, but I do think it's pretty interesting that we have seen Sean O'Malley deal with not only him but before Song Yadong. That was he's pretty decent at grappling as well, and he dealt with him. So I think it's pretty logical. Take the next step up, beat Umar, beat Umar, and then either get the rematch versus Merab or Petr Yan. It's just take your pick, whoever is the champ. If Sean wins obviously versus Umar.
Yeah.
And because you can't really make a case for Sean skipping the queue versus Umar, right?
No, I don't believe it. Maybe it's like for star power, but I don't think so. And like now he has some hype. I would hope that he wants to be somewhat active because Merab versus Petr Yan hasn't even been announced yet. So if that gets announced, it's going to be like at the earliest, probably like September or October or even later. So if Sean's going to sit out for a title shot, he might be waiting until like almost a year. So I think be active, back yourself. Umar is a tough matchup for everyone and is a world-class wrestler. But if you're good enough, you should be able to handle that. So make a statement because if he beats Umar, that's massive for his legacy, and he definitely certifies a title shot in that case. So I think that's what he should do.
Yeah.
All right.
That makes a lot of sense. So we covered that fight, right? We can move on.
Yep.
So next up, or moving down the card, we have a heavyweight bout between Josh Hokit versus Derek Lewis, where Hokit really showed there's a level difference here and an age gap, as we talked about beforehand. In terms of performance, just Hokit just completely blew Lewis out of the water. Lewis couldn't even land a strike on him, and he looked completely out of his depth. There's not really that much more to say. Otherwise, that it was an impressive Hokit performance, but I thought it was better than expected, or maybe worse than expected in terms of Lewis' performance. What did you see from this fight?
I mean, it's amazing that you basically summed up the whole fight in like 30 seconds because that's like everything there is to say. Sorry, we predicted exactly this. Josh Hokit looks good. His performance against Curtis Blades was amazing, and I said if he does the same thing here against Derek Lewis' only chance is to catch him and knock him out. But nothing over the last 3 years has shown that Derek Lewis is capable of that anymore. And as you said, the age is really the factor here. A prime Derek Lewis, it would have been another story. But Josh Hokit basically just moved around him, gassed him out, and it didn't take much longer. I think we even predicted, the first or second round here. So it didn't take long at all for Hokit to get this one done. Impressive win, as always, when you beat a legend. It's going to look good on his resume at least. But I'm amazed at how little there is to say about this fight because it was just as we predicted. Derek Lewis looked incredibly slow and old. And I mean, if he wants to take another one against like another legend, maybe do so if the UFC want to sign it. But otherwise, I would suggest hanging him up for Derek Lewis, honestly, because I don't want to see him. He's a legend. He's made a lot of money in his career, and I don't want to see him take more damage like this against the top guys. It's starting to get like painful to watch. So
I agree.
But so in terms of what's next for him, it's retirement, I think. But Josh Hokit, the Incredible Hawk, the star that keeps on giving. I mean, this guy is amazing. Who I personally believe that it's time for another step up because he's beaten Curtis Blades, who is one of the best guys. Now he's beaten another legend with really big power. There's no point looking down in the rankings. The only thing I've seen is Jamal Hill, who is moving up to heavyweight now. He wants to fight him, but does that make sense? How good is Jamal Hill? Most people think he's pretty washed. Why should Hokit take that fight? I think if you're going with the premise that we discussed, that Pavlovich fights Pereira, I think that Volkov versus Hokit makes all of the sense in the world. Because Volkov almost deserves the title shot, Hokit almost deserves the title shot. This is the definition of a number one contender match. Both guys are on the edge of deserving a title shot. If they fight, and even if one guy beats the other one on like a split decision, they have the perfect streak to get the title shot. So if they fight like in Hokit didn't take any damage. Volkov fought pretty recently against Cortez Acosta and didn't take that much damage. I think they can make this fight in like October, November time, and then have the winner fight the champion in like the start of next year. Do you have any other thoughts on what's next for Hokit, or do you think that makes sense?
No, I think that makes complete sense. Make Hokit versus Volkov next, absolutely.
All right, yeah, that's the one, no doubt. Then moving down the card, we have a fight that I think I was gonna say. Well, we predicted it again, but I've didn't see a single person in the entire MMA community who didn't predict this one exactly. Round 1 KO, and the UFC. I mean, it's always fun to see a nice KO, but stop making these fights. It's not a good fight if everyone can predict the outcome. So, I mean, do you have anything to say about this fight with how it went?
No, I mean, I think it just went exactly as we predicted. It was a nice knockout, a nice, wheel kick from Ruffy. So I guess you can give him props for not making it boring. But there's nothing else to say really. There's miles apart, these guys, and Ruffy should be a clear. He should be clearly fighting upwards in this division, in this lightweight division, and facing a little bit of a stronger competition, right?
Yeah, totally. That's what I want to see. I mean, Hoof is one of my favorite fighters, and it's because of how complete he is. And I see a lot of the things. Everyone knows that his technique is very good, his power is very good, but there's a lot of other stuff, the little things you can analyze in his game that just tells me that he's going to make it very, very far in his lightweight division. I think he could be, now just training with Volk, he might be a future champ, I reckon. it's just he moves so smart, and I mean, I want to see him, like you said, I want to see him in there with someone a lot better because everyone knew this one was too easy, and it was a good name to have in your resume because Michael Chandler is not a legend, but he's a staple piece of the lightweight division in the UFC. It's fought like everyone, so to beat him with a knockout in the first round, that's good for Hoofy's record. But now it's time to move up. Looking at the rankings, I don't want to look down. I've seen some people say like Gamrot, but I'm like, really? That doesn't give me too
I
much.
think
That
we're
fight.
past Gamrot,
Yeah,
right?
totally. We are, and Hooker and Moicano, everyone like that. For me,
It's
is it?
difficult though because
Yeah,
there's a lot of booked fighters, right? We have
exactly. I
Sandini
mean,
versus
is
Pimblet.
it harsh to give him the loser of Paddy versus Santini, or is it like otherwise? I'm thinking almost. I personally believe he deserves the winner because I don't think that the
Yeah,
winner of
I
Paddy
think so.
and Santini should get a title shot with the fact that Charles and Arman are up there. But Holloway's in the rankings right now, but he's moving up to welterweight. We don't know what's happening with him. Taking him out of the equation because even if he beats Connor, that doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
Arman,
he's not back in a title
no,
uh,
no, no. Exactly, exactly.
consideration for the
So
lightweight. So,
Arman and Charles should fight, and the winner should fight Gaethje in what did you say? Start of next year, maybe like January. In that
yeah,
time, there is 100% time to make. Ruffy didn't take any damage. Put him in there with the winner of Paddy Pimblett and Benoit Saint-Denis, who fights on the same card as Connor and Max Holloway, UFC 329 International Fight Week. I think that's the one to make personally, but maybe that's my bias. Do you agree, or do you have any other matchup in mind?
no, I completely agree. I don't think that's because the loser of Benoit Saint-Denis and Paddy Pimblett is basically just a new, I don't know, a new Hooker or a new Gamrot. So
Yeah,
it's sort of
yeah,
the
yeah.
same kind of matchup. So I just say, even if their level might be a little bit higher, I'd still say that he deserves to just fight upwards. He deserves to fight another fighter. I mean, it's difficult maybe to talk about Saint-Denis because he did lose versus him beforehand, so it would be a rematch, and that
Oh
would be
yeah,
really
yeah, of
interesting,
course. Yeah, that's true.
right?
Very true.
Because but he did submit him, so it's not a knockout loss. It's not like a Ilia versus Oliveira type of loss that
That's
you
true.
don't want to see again. It's a completely different. I actually think it would be interesting. I actually think it's a case for hyping that fight up, making Ruffy versus Sandini 2 if he wins, and to test his ground game because
Yeah,
you're not, Ruffy has no sort of place in the title.
picture.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, in the title picture, if he can't beat someone, what I meant to say is if he can't beat someone like Sandini, if he can't beat that guy's wrestling, then he has no sort of place against Arman or against Ilya, you
yeah,
know,
that's true.
fighting for the title. So I think that's a good test to make that rematch and see if he can deal with the grappling this time.
Yeah, and otherwise, Paddy Pimblett, if he wins, that's a really
Yeah,
sick
and
matchup. That's
Paddy probably does. I probably would pick Paddy in that fight, even if it's a bit. We're gonna make a proper prediction for that
yeah,
fight
yeah.
eventually. But I
But if
would
Paddy
pick Paddy.
wins, that's the one to
Yeah,
make surely, and the winner of that
yeah,
does deserve a title shot. So yeah, I think
absolutely.
that's spot on for the lightweight division. And Michael Chandler again, same. Join Derek Lewis, retire, hang him up, maybe do like RAF or like GFL,
Yeah,
something like
just get
that.
him out of there. He doesn't need
Yeah,
to
not
get
in the
more beatings.
UFC. I mean, now he's
Yeah,
not even ranked anymore, and he can't. I mean, he could be facing like unranked guys if he wants to, but I mean, his paycheck, according to his contract, is very large for the level of fighter he is. So I'm not sure the UFC are gonna want to like pay him that much to be on the prelims against an unranked guy. Maybe to chuck him in if they have like an exciting new contender. Maybe give him Mike Chandler so the contender can win and build
yeah.
his name
Maybe give him
using
like Stall killed.
yeah, something like that. But I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
interested in seeing him fight again
no,
personally. I'm sorry, but
me either.
um, speaking of people that I'm not too interested in seeing fighting, we have the next fight: Bo Nickal versus Kyle Daukaus. Kyle Daukaus again. I wasn't expecting too much, but it was even worse than I thought. But impressive
Yeah,
from Bo Nickal. I mean, he showed some new tools. To be fair, I was impressed the last time out. He won with the head kick. Now I believe it was a body kick, and then he followed
yeah,
it up with like a 1-2 and got a ground and pound finish. Really nice, really good combination. For me, I mean, I've seen people if I record my own pad work in the gym, it looks pretty good. And that's kind of what I see it be like with, an opponent like Carl Daukaus. It's like it's a punching bag. So, wow, you looked good against him. If that was like someone like a Kai Borajo, for example, like a good middleweight, you wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't be leaping into range with your shin in the air. And if you were, you would be getting knocked out. But I'm not going to critique him too much. He did win. He did get a big finish in this fight, and you can only beat what's in front of you. So I don't know if you have anything else to add in terms of the fight, because again, this was one-way traffic, good finish. But if you
No,
have
I mean,
anything to add, please do. Otherwise, who do you want to see Nickal face next?
yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add. I think it was you could say a slightly impressive performance from both Nickal, but he was already the favorite beforehand. I guess it's the method. He showed some improved striking, so as you said, some new tools, but it's Kyle Daukaus, and yeah, don't know what you can say about that kind of opponent. So, speaking of what's next for Bo Nickal, I think you want to put him in there against someone who maybe is a bit more of a test, and maybe that could be someone like, it's hard to say. Maybe I'm trying to find someone who hasn't a fight booked here, because we're at the very
Yeah,
bottom here
that's the thing.
of the middleweight division, right? We're not anywhere higher. Maybe someone like Robocop, maybe Gregory Rodriguez, or
Ooh,
um,
that's
right?
interesting.
That's a
Because
striker.
the,
That's
the
an
thing the
important.
thing with that is, like I said, he can't be doing the stuff he's been doing against a Robocop, because Robocop
Yeah,
has like
absolutely.
almost, this is a bold take. He's up there with in the middleweight division of almost having the best punching power in the entire middleweight division. So you won't be leaping out with your shin in there against Robocop. So I think that would be a good test, because then he has to grapple in a smart way. And not, Bo Nickal is an amazing grappler, or wrestler, should I say. Um, but that's in wrestling, where you can't do damage against your opponent. When you're trying to wrestle against a guy, Robocop, by the way, if we talk about that fight, he has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so he's no easy game on the ground as well. But you won't be doing that against a striker. So I think that's a good shout, actually. I was looking at some other names, but like you mentioned, there's not too many. He's fought the Reader before, obviously lost there. Adesanya, I don't think will be taking that one.
And
Robert
a lot
Widger,
of them are booked, and some other
yeah.
guys are a bit too bit. Yeah, as you said, Adesanya Izzy is a bit, and already Izzy, RDR, and Pfeiffer, they're way too high up, I think, in terms
Yeah,
of
maybe,
level of
because I was gonna
competition.
say something like an Anthony Hernandez or someone like that, because he's coming off a loss against Strickland, but maybe that's too much of a leap in level.
I'm
But
thinking
I
that's
mean,
too much of a lead, maybe,
he
in
fought
terms.
the Reader though, who is very good, and he lost that, but since then he has had two good wins. But when I say good, I mean good finishes, but they were against unranked guys, I'm pretty sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you. Gregor Rodriguez, I don't know when he's going to be back, but I would love to see him fight against Bo Nickal, because as a style matchup, that's really, really exciting, I think.
yeah. And Bo Nickal, he's only 30 years old, so he has time left in the UFC. I don't think that you need to rush him. Maybe it's the other way around, especially when he lost, after the loss against Ryan the Reader.
Yeah,
Maybe
take his
you want to
time,
give
yeah.
him some. Yeah, and I'm not saying, by the way, because I do think Robocop that's a good level of competition. It's a completely different level of fighter, actually, when compared to Kaldakis.
Yeah.
But and he's in a pretty good run, I'm pretty sure. Robocop won the last two fights, and the last one in a round one TKO. So that's just a shout. But otherwise, maybe someone like Dolidze or someone, who also doesn't have a fight booked and isn't that too high of a level of fighter. But yeah, I think Robocop is a good shout. So
Yeah, definitely.
maybe we'll move on then to the last fight, or rather the first fight on the card, and that is a featherweight bout between Diego Lopes and Steve Garcia, where Diego Lopes put up a real I don't really know what to even call it. He really showed that he both had a superior chin and superior power in that last exchange when he knocked him out, when he knocked Steve Garcia out. And is there anything to say about this fight? Maybe there was
I mean,
something.
there's a
Yeah.
few things to say. The first is, I don't know what's more impressive, this fight from Diego Lopez or the fact that he was the only one who predicted Justin Gaethje to beat Ilia Topuria. I thought it was crazy,
Yeah,
but
I
he
remember
did
that.
predict that, so fair enough. But in terms of the fight, I want to give us some credit as well, because we said, I know you mentioned something like he's like levels above and Garcia Lopez is, and I was like, yeah, and not just one level. He's like 5 or 10
Yeah,
levels. Even though
yeah,
Garcia coming into this one was ranked at number 9, I'm pretty sure. But people are sleeping on Diego Lopez. I mean, 2 losses against the greatest featherweight of all time, and people think you're washed. I mean, Diego Lopez proved everyone what kind of fighter he is. Like you said, he ate those combinations by Steve Garcia like they were his breakfast, and just came back and put him out. And I think what made our prediction correct also when we like explained it, I remember is like Diego Lopez did this against John Silva, who's one of the best strikers in the featherweight division and has a lot of power. If you can do it against John Silva, take a few punches, but then just turn the fight around and finish him, you can bet your house on the fact that he's going to do it against a guy like Steve Garcia. So I think he
yeah.
showed everyone what kind of fighter he is. Do you have anything to add in terms of his performance here in this fight?
No, I just think that, as you said, he showed his levels above, and that's the most important thing that he could have done in this fight, for the UFC, to show that he deserves to, even after, the double, the back-to-back losses against Volkanovski.
Yeah,
That's Volkanovski, and it's a completely different level of fighter, and he deserves to be in the title shot picture for the
100%.
future, I believe.
And speaking of
So,
that, is there anyone you want to see him in there with next, or?
I mean, I don't really know. It's hard to say because there's, I wouldn't want to say that he doesn't get an immediate title shot. I don't think that's possible,
No, not a
after seeing
trilogy.
him just
Yeah.
back to back. Yeah, not a trilogy, because he's gonna lose again. I'm 100% sure. There's nothing from Volk that I saw last fight that it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Volk maybe it was a little bit more competitive. I'm not really sure the second fight, but it was still a clear win for Volkanovski. So
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think that maybe someone like Movsar Evlev, could that be a good fight for him to
I mean,
make?
for me,
Do you think Movsar gets the title shot before? And
yeah, that's the thing because those two guys, Evloev and Lopez, have had a lot of beef, and obviously they
yeah,
they fought in Lopez's debut, and that was a fight that Lopez took on like a week's notice on his debut,
oh
and he
yeah,
lost. He lost a very competitive matchup, and since then he's been doing a lot better than Evloev. But Evloev is undefeated. But these two guys have been beefing on and off like for years now. So for me, I would love to see that fight. However, you just said it. I think Evloev is getting a title shot against Volk this autumn. So Lopez needs some other competition. For me, there is like maybe now actually when I look at it, I was gonna say there's one name that stands out, Leroy Murphy. I mean that fight would feed generations in terms of entertainment.
fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. But then I see the guy who's not been fighting, Yair Rodriguez, a legend of the featherweight division, or maybe not a legend, but like I said, with Chandler, he's a staple piece. He's been there several years, fought all the best featherweights basically. Not gotten the results every time, but he's still ranked at number 5. And him and Lopez have been beefing a lot. Like we know, Jair Rodriguez is from Mexico, and Diego Lopez is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he's from Brazil, but he wants to represent Mexico. I think he lives in Mexico. And they've been beefing about that. And they've been beefing a lot, when they were on the same press conference, even though they weren't fighting each other. So for me, while Diego Lopez is not getting a title shot, if he that fight will be a big fight, draw a lot of eyes, a lot of attention. They will sell that fight, and if he gets a win against a 5th-ranked guy, I think that's really good for Diego Lopez. But it's not too much of a risk either. So I reckon Leron Murphy or Yair Rodriguez, either one of those two is the fight to make. I reckon for Lopez going forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's Rodriguez. That's a great fight for Diego Lopez to still prove, he is in that title picture, but also not to rush him back because maybe someone like
Yeah,
Aaron Murphy, maybe it's too much. I don't know
might
because that
be.
immediately puts him back there. So I'm not sure, but
And there's not too many
Diego
fights
Lopez
in the.
season, yeah,
Sorry, but
there's
there's
not
not
too
too
many fights
many
to make. Were you gonna say that?
Yeah, and there's not too many fights in the UFC where there is genuine beef. It's like I've been begging for Bilal Muhammad versus Kamaru Usman for ages because there's only a few fighters that have
Yeah,
actual beef.
that's
Most of
true.
them fake it. But when you have two fighters that generally don't like each other, like Strickland and Hamzat, for instance, book the fight, UFC. I mean, we need this kind of hype. You see the numbers when it's a genuine rivalry.
Yeah.
I meant so. But like you said, there's not a lot of fights to make. But don't rush Diego Lopez back too quickly after those 2 losses against Volk. Now he's gotten 1 back, but there was a reason why they put him in there with the number 9 ranked guy. So I reckon the correct thing to do is give him Yair. If they want to, if they feel desperate, do it against Murphy. But I think either case, you're going to ruin one of those guys' hype completely, Murphy or Lopez in that case. And I don't know if that's worth it,
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and also in terms of for Murphy, after the loss versus Evlev, maybe you want to get someone that's a bit easier than Diego Lopez here. Maybe it's someone like...
someone down the rankings.
Yeah, someone down the rankings. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe that's for another... Yeah,
that's
for
for another
UFC,
time, yeah.
Basically,
yeah.
They're going to put him back soon, I'm guessing. But
yeah,
not yet.
Exactly. All right, that's the entire card. Like you said at the start, I'm going to repeat it again because it's worth saying. An amazing card, even though not everything went as we wanted. It was like you said, all finishes in every single fight, never done before. An amazing event, just the cinematics of it. It was, incredible. So a special one for sure. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's our reaction and instant review of UFC Freedom 250, the White House. Thank you guys a lot for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, catch you guys next time. Thank you for watching.